again, thanks for staying with us. This is Focus Nigeria. My name is Amechi Anakwe. Nigeria's unemployment rate is put at about 35%. With an exponential population, there are indications that the biggest economy in Africa is facing a huge challenge of creating much needed jobs. With the 2023 general election in sight, what are the options for the candidates for massive job creation? Apart from security, the second single most important topic and agenda for the next president should be job creation. And a lot of people believe the insecurity Nigeria is experiencing is tied to the high unemployment rate and poverty rate in the country. So tackling this jointly is a short way of dealing with this situation. But joining me on our discourse to take a look at these issues and prescribe more options and strategies for the would-be president come 2023 is Senator Ikechukwu Obiorah, a lawyer and former lawmaker. He was in the Senate between 2007 and 2011. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's all about job creation, and Senator Ikechukwu Obiorah was at the upper legislative chamber in Nigeria, the Senate, between 2007 and 2011. And he has researched deeply on these issues and is here to share the outcome with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Job creation is what I will call necessary, if not compulsory, for Nigeria, considering our unemployment situation and the insecurity arising from it. Perhaps let's start by getting your perspectives on how we got to a situation where our unemployment rate is at 35% and perhaps rising.
Yeah, okay. The unemployment rate actually amongst the youth populations is more than 35%. It's as much as 60%, because when you add unemployment and underemployment, it shoots up to 62%. Well, the last time I was here with you, we looked at the causes. One of them is non-development of human capital stock, lack of proper education, technical education, and all whatnot. Then secondly, the non-performance of the economy. The economy is not doing well at all. And these things have a way of existing in a self-perpetuating chain. When the youths are not unemployed, a lot of them have no purchasing power, and that in itself deals tremendously against productivity, production and consumption, and with which now imperils further the economy and creates the environment for unemployment. But today, what I want us to do is to go straight to what we have to do for the youths that are today unemployed.
Absolutely, I agree with you, but I wanted us to trace the reason why we are where we are today. Perhaps it will give us opportunity to project into the future.
Yeah, okay. So when Nigeria gained its independence, we never laid out the markers for an economy that will grow. In our industrial effort, the employment drivers were neglected. We became an import-dependent economy from day one. The exchange rate was fixed 1-to-1, and people didn't have any need to go into manufacturing because we imported everything. That psychology has remained with us from that day till date. That is a major fault line we set up.
I thought there was import substitution with the various national development plans that tried to bring in this manufacturing firms here.
Okay, so we had the import industrialization substitution strategy, but that was a state-led based investment strategy that concentrated on big industrial, big utility concerns, and most of them, all those utility concerns were wholesale transplantation of technology. That is, we went out there, moved from design to implementation to construction. Everything was done wholesale. We never participated. We never set our people up to be trained. So all those utilities that we set up are today floundering. From the
after the expiry dates,
we couldn't maintain them and all that, and we didn't train our people. Without training them, we didn't set up the generational chain, so that one generation will train the next generation and all that.
I recall the Anamco, the cement manufacturing plant. Yes. After some time, when past started breaking down, replacement became problem, and like you said, the indigenous skilled manpower to drive it was absent. Is this still the current situation?
Yes, because we didn't also set up. You know, the last time we delved so much in technical education, we had to set up the technical how kids can get technically educated, and the training process. We never did any of that. So up to date, those facets are still lacking in the economy. The economy is still import dependent. We have no way of manufacturing anything. In fact, we used to import water, to bring water into Nigeria, bottled water, because we thought it was classic. So we didn't set that up. But to set it up, we have to become very serious in training our kids in technical education, in human capital stock development, and then in on-the-job training that comes after technical education. And you have to get the economy working, because the economy has huge infrastructure deficit, particularly electricity and steel. I mentioned those the last time. And the population, you look at our population problem, the exclusion, is a problem in itself. We have our growth is about 3.2% per annum. That's about 7 million new Nigerians coming into the population every year. And then with our GDP growing anemically at maybe 1.2% on the average. So it's just like inviting 210 people to a wedding and cooking for 10. So what's going to happen? The 200 people are going to go hungry. The president has inaugurated a population management, National Council on Population Management, and has
a policy to
and then the policy, on population for sustainable development. But all those things, technical education, economy growing, population managed, we are being managed properly. All those things are things that will kick into if we are serious, that will kick into in the medium and long term. But right now, you have about 30 million youths, 36 million youths that are either unemployed or unemployed. So what do we do? We must do something, because the hopelessness and despair amongst these youth populations are driving the multitudes of them into anarchy, into insurrectionist militias, heinous crimes, and all that.
And for those that can afford it, migration.
And those who can afford it migrate, but what percentage? Very significant.
Absolutely.
And then so what happens is that the youths become readily employable or by the nefarious gangs of anarchy. It's very easy to recruit the youths because they are hopeless.
And they see the economic benefit of
and then they recruited. And then they also see that they also feel that where they're being recruited, are organizations of a higher cause. That is, if it's religious fanaticism, that they think that is the way to go, or political zealotry, or mercantilist, materialistic philosophy where you subdue the state in order to exploit its resources. So these things create a problem. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian civilization today is ebbing by the day. Our humanity is challenged and denigrated and degrades by the hour.
And we see the indications everywhere.
Yes.
The gruesome murder crime.
Yes, you see, countless lives and limbs are lost by the minutes, and millions of these kids are thrown into poverty, and the general well-being is completely demolished. So
in the immediate term, you said.
Yes. So so right now we must compete. The government must compete with the anti-social, anti-societal dark impulses of the anarchists, because what you have is that you have one system recruiting through ideology. The government must come in and do something.
I said it not here in another forum, that the Nigerian government is in direct competition with these criminal groups over recruitment of its citizens.
Yes, but the Nigerian government hasn't engaged properly in that competition. The competition is there. The insurrectionist militias are recruiting, but we are not really competing. To compete, we must find a way of creating mass employment for the youths in a way also that gives them pride of belonging to an organization of higher purpose. And that is what we have to do. And that is why I've come up with this plan of the government, subject to agreement between the state government and the federal government, setting up an infrastructure youth corps program. And if you remember, I don't know how, you remember those days when we had IYC, International Year of the Child. So that acronym, I borrowed a little bit of that to set this one up, so that we need to set up a program, a federal program that will mobilize the raw energies of these youths to provide needed infrastructure in their states. Because it's a win-win situation.
In a kind of public works program.
The public works program. Let me sound a note of caution. The most sustainable employment engine is the private sector, because the private sector drives much higher productivity, creates wealth and well-being, cuts waste and slothfulness and nepotism and embezzlement, and that's what, and even engenders a much more efficient application of the factors of production. That's what the private sector does. But we can't wait that traditional incremental risk-averse approach which we adopt, waiting for the economy to kick in and for technical education to kick in. We can't wait, because the population explosion is upon us.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Get the majority of our citizens into building of critical infrastructure, and that industry is dominated by multinational foreign companies.
I'm not talking about those high-scale, high fancy infrastructural development. I am talking about those ones at the subnational levels in the states, various things that will require day-to-day, which we don't have, but which will aid the economic development and well-being of the states, of the individuals. So under my plan, we have this infrastructural youth corps program that will mobilize, harness, train, and employ the raw energies of the youths to provide the infrastructure we need. And infrastructure such as infrastructure here is defined as anything, any underlying facility, any basic underlying facility that will aid economic development and well-being. Anyone. So you have physical structures which aid economic development and social well-being, such as schools, school blocks, and other. Let me give you an example. In our education starts at the age of 3. That is the early childhood care and development education. It starts at the age of 3. At this particular level of education actually prepares the child for primary education, lays the foundation for cognitive, intellectual, physical, emotional, social skills development, prepares the child for creativity and spirits of inquiry. In fact, it lays the foundation for everything that will come in the life trajectory of the child. But out of the 26 million children that should be getting this education, only 3 million are engaged. The reason is that we don't have the structures. The structure starts from the classroom. It starts from the physical classroom where these kids will go. Now, we're going further up the ladder. The basic education category suffers a 15 million children's kids a deficit. We have 15 to 16 million children out of school. Okay, but despite this number of people out of school, humongous number of children out of school, the school system is still plagued by so much deficit. You find that the pupil teacher ratio, which should be 1 to 35 for in primary school and 1 to 40 in secondary school, has long been abandoned. In fact, the school classroom blocks are overcrowded by as much as 40%. The reason being that we have a deficit of 200,000 classrooms.
So massive construction of new classrooms, engaging the locals will create immediate jobs.
Once you have the classroom, once you have the classroom, you have the school block, you have the refectory, you have the sports ground, you have the pathway, you have the grass veg, you have the infirmary where you treat kids. So you have so much physical structures to build in school, and then we have Nigerians youths who can build this short training out of work. Okay, now look at the primary health care. The primary health care addresses the majority of every person's health needs in our lifetime. That's just very, very important. And God bless Professor Olukoye Ransom Kuti when he was the minister. He
father of primary health care.
Yes, he expanded it to all the local government areas. But what do we have today? By our own population standards, we should have at least 120,000 primary health care centers. We have only 30,000. And of those 30,000, there is not one that can pass the acid test of quality assurance. Not one. And it starts from the physical structure. The ones that are there are dilapidated, and then we still need to...
Personnel, not even to speak of it. So that's what the housing sector said is another enabler, job creation. That once you begin to build houses, that a greater segment of the youth within that area will be part of that project.
Okay, yes, so that particularly is for social housing.
Mass housing.
Social housing. You know, it's very easy to build houses, low-income houses, and then get the people, if the person paying rent of maybe 10,000 a month, which is a low-income poor person paying 10,000 a month, that 10,000 can be converted from rent into a mortgage payment. So if you build social housing, low-income houses, we can convert the rental payment of many low-income people into mortgage payment.
And rent to own.
Yes, you give them, and then they'll be using that rent to pay the mortgage, and then there's capital formation, because as you pay the rent, the property is appreciating, and then you're saving into the mortgage payment. So you're also building capital. That's the way to go. And then you mentioned the roads, feeder roads. Our road network is about 200,000 kilometers. Out of that, 120,000 are feeder roads. These are roads existing in the rural areas.
Going into farms?
Yes, and you know that Nigerian agricultural value chain is dominated by as much as 90% by smallholder farmers. These are rural-based farmers.
Subsistent farmers.
They're subsistent. They don't see themselves as entrepreneurs, and all that. The agriculture is primitive. The season is seasonal and rain fed. They are so dependent on these feeder roads for access to their farms, to inputs, and to markets. But those roads are unpaved. 90% to 95% of our feeder roads are unpaved. Okay, so these feeder roads are the roads that can be built by high intensive, labor intensive category. That is, they are designed, for more of manual labor
than machines.
So we can go out there. We can go out there and build the drainages, and then cast the drainages by hand, by manual labor, and then use local equipment for compacting, and from local equipment for grading, handheld graders to grade, and then apply the sub-base, receive the base course, and put bitumen. The road is done. We can do that.
Earning income and acquiring competence and expertise. I raised this issue in one of my recent research, that if you get the people involved in that way, apart from the economic benefit, for instance, if it's a borehole or any other issue, there's this linkage, that ownership. They wouldn't allow any person to vandals to get near it and all that. It gets more security in terms of
yes, because there's a sense of ownership. So going forward, water reticulation. When last did the rural person or even in the city turn on his taps? Remember those days? These things used to be done by the public works department. We called them PWD. They dug the ground by hand and laid the pipes. So we have the youths that can do that. The urban renewal. All the cities are slums. Lagos is the richest state in Nigeria, but Lagos has at least 100 slums. So it's just imagine to compare that with other states. So the kids, our youths, can be deployed to clear up these slums. Do you know that?
And helping the renewal process.
If take Onitsha is a slum. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that to denigrate, but that is the
reality.
If you planted 1 million trees,
and the governor is giving it up.
The governor is moving on to remedy this situation. If you planted 1 million trees in Onitsha, what you have a sudden gentrification. It will gentrify. You begin to see the villages of foliages of gentrification. You see that it begins to take shape just by planting trees. So these physical structures that we require.
Okay.
We must mobilize our raw energies of our youths to provide them the rural electrification.
We'll go for a break now. When we come back, more on this very important discourse, one that people don't readily go to, one that is usually not dominating the headline, and one that is very critical to not just Nigeria's development but its security. Ikechukwu Obiorah was a senator between 2007 and 2011, a trained lawyer, and he joins me today on our discourse to prescribe options for the Nigerian government, especially the incoming president and the governors. They are also critical as they command and generate a greater portion of our GDPs for creating jobs, not needed jobs in Nigeria. You're a trained lawyer, and I see you delve into development, and it's quite strange. How come? Maybe by the side.
Well, I mean, the education is eclecticism. That is knowing this and being able to know this and know that if every education has to be eclectic, otherwise
to become meaningful.
Yes, to become meaningful.
Now, you told us before we went on break the issue of massive infrastructure creation involving young people, creating jobs in the process. Are there other things we can do in the interim?
Yes, yes, of course. I was talking about rural electrification. 18 million Nigerians have no access to grid electricity. So what is the rocket science about doing rural electrification that is off-grid? No, we can mobilize our
clean energy solar.
You can do clean, and you can also do small scale. You can do small scale power. You know, we can't. We can't go all the way clean. Clean energy is what we have to aspire to. But in the interim, we have coal. We have lying in waste, and our coal is low sulfur, meaning we can use that to put small scale generating plants, which the youths can do. We can dam rivers, we do small scale irrigation and all that. And the beauty of it is that the federal program, the board will take most of these jobs as if they are on contract, and there will be value for money, because if a classroom is expected to be constructed, you'll be given the bill of quantities for 5 million for one classroom. If the state board if the state branch of IYC is giving 100 million naira, it has to produce 20 classrooms. So this is not what you take the money and run away. It's something that will provide value, and then keep the kids employed and provide those basic underlying facilities that we require for the society, for the due functioning of the society. Now, we've talked about the physical infrastructure. The second one is services. The non-physical...
Sorry, before we get to that, who will drive the process, federal, states, or local government?
You see, it is... I'll go to the board, but I might as well clear that now. This program is going to be an internationally composed program. That's the board of directors. It's going to go by for legislation and then passed by the National Assembly in order to give it legislative teeth. The board of directors, in order to leverage a diverse base of experience, motivate international development agencies' interest and buy-in, generate immense international donor support, attract the international technical and professional type volunteers, and then put such a humongous logistical operation into a pathway of success. We must have an internationally composed board of directors. That's where we go again. So the IYC will be managed by an international board in which United Nations Development Program will nominate 12, and the Nigerians there will be 12 Nigerians. Exquisitely accomplished Nigerians, 6 from Nigerians that are resident and 6 from the Nigerians in diaspora. You remember, Nigerians in diaspora are much more exposed than us here in Nigeria. We must tap into
more access to capital.
Yes, and the knowledge and know-how and how things are done properly. So we must leverage also that support we have from our people in diaspora. So this is the board. The board now comes in and sets up the state structures. The state structures will be the board will take the final decision on who works and who doesn't work. And then loads and loads of people who are working in the public sectors, federal and private and the states and state public sector will be hired by this board. Each person only on secondment, meaning that you are still taking your salary from where you are working.
It sounds like an alternative government.
No, it's under the government. It's under the law.
It's just like PTF under Abacha regime.
Yes, but this particular one is different because this one has an international buy-in, and we need that international buy-in because of the financial support we'll be getting
from the diaspora. Okay, very quickly, we talked about the energy issue, the smart arms and all that, but the legislation guiding the electricity sector, there's a monopoly, as it were, the way I see it, a monopoly. As a business organization, you can't readily go and generate electricity, distribute and sell. So we need to do something on that power sector.
Well, okay, so the electricity we are talking about is the rural electrification. There's no such monopoly. As a matter of fact, the rural electrification agency is set up by the government under the Power Sector Reform Act. Is there to make sure to reduce this quantum of 18 million people who are there in energy poverty, no access to electricity. So they welcome
those not on the grid.
Yes, those not. So they welcome any assistance. And as a matter of fact, if we have this statewide structure that is nationwide, it will provide structure for rural electrification. Because right now, if you go to their website, there's the rural electrification agency. There's no chart showing this is where we have done and this is where we need to do. There's no. It will bring organization. In which case, the states IYC will take up a particular segment of the states. And it will happen in all the states, so you know which ones that are now getting service and which ones will now get service. Please let me run to let me run quickly to the services. Apart from physical structures, there are non-physical structures. there are non-physical structures and services that are much needed in the local communities and rural areas. So with teaching, to look at teaching, the Nigerian education value chain, particularly at the lower levels, the basic education, has a deficit of 800,000 teachers from early childhood, development education to basic education, almost 800,000, and that is why the teachers who are not qualified are allowed to teach. Well, my mom was a teacher. Retired as head mistress. Yeah. And I learned from her, God bless her soul, that the most important occupation in mankind is teaching, because that is the engine of diffusion, dispersal, dissemination of knowledge. But how have we treated now these guarantors of our civilization with disdain? Teachers are the least paid. And because of that, they do not have that necessary drive to go and train and qualify. And because of that, we have 44% of the teachers, our teachers, without the basic
unqualified
certificate of education. And then we have the deficit in numbers. Okay, so what do? We work out the situation where we pay the teachers well. I'm writing a treatise, education treatise, which I title "Remaking Nigeria's Education." That will be published very soon. Okay, but how do we now solve the deficit of teachers? We have thousands, 700,000 graduates coming to the workforce every year without special skills and all that. We can just, those who will be willing, will go for a crash course, pass, and then you're hired. And then also the mass literacy and adult the informal education program is, we will have 70 million Nigerians who are illiterate, and with this mass literacy program has been set up to assist brain functional literacy and continuing education.
I rarely hear of it this day.
But it's nothing. It's not. Only 500,000 are registered, and if out of 500,000, only 136,000 are active. So, but we have youth who have come out of school, are looking for work, and then we have illiterates. So it's just to bring the merge the kids with education to teach in this mass literacy campaign. And then look at national identification registration. Up to now, we have not gotten a penetration of above 30%. We are still below
of the entire population.
And those who are not registered are the people that need this registration most. So we have the youth who can fan out to the far-flung nooks and crevices of the country and engage and register our people. And as they're registering them, they're registering the farmers into the national database of farmers. So these are services that we need to
that is if they have the servers with the right capacity to take all this. Are there, because I know presently there are challenges with the existing capacity and all that. Are there other areas?
Okay. So when you're talking about capacity, capacity is not the problem. The problem is that the people, most of Nigerians, particularly in rural areas, don't ever even heard of it. It is not capacity. You can store, and then when you get the server, you upload. That is not the problem.
The delayed speed of upload and access.
No, that is not the problem. The problem is that capturing. These people have not been captured.
For the already captured.
For the already captured, there's not so much as all those who have been captured. You don't have the physical card, but at least you have your number and can be electronically.
That's what I'm saying. If you're captured now, it takes a long time, years possible, for your data to drop in the main bank where it will be assessed by the agencies.
There's the influx of internet providers into the Nigerian economic space is heightening. This will be sorted out. I heard that Elon Musk has been licensed to come in with his system. So and then Apple method, which is Zuckerberg is doing a pipeline that is considered the biggest. Google is also doing, and then the data centers that are springing up. So this will be solved. What the major problem is to capture the Nigerian.
Get them in the database.
Okay, so we go through this. I've talked about services. Then food production. With food production and agricultural production, we can harvest. We can get our youths to get interested. We attract at least 1 to 2 million youths every year into that by making them entrepreneurs in a situation where they register, train, and then get land from the state government. That I will specify. Get land from the state government quickly, and then use that land to get loan. We don't want to do this unsustainable system. This is the CBN has done in Ankorbora. You can't recover the money. It has to be collateral. You understand? So these kids go in, train, and when they come out, they form cooperatives with their friends, their cousins, kindred, and all that. Minimum of 20, and then the government appoints a moderator from the state civil service who hold the money which will be given, so that the money is not dissipated. These people become entrepreneurs. The agriculture can.
But the governors granting consents, the problem, the hitches in getting certificate of.
No, this one is different, because you see, it's a federal program. The president will call the governors, come together, and then they will agree on how to provide it. The governor can perfunctorily sign the seal by stamping. He doesn't need to really sign. And this is generated in mass, because the land is plotted in hectares and given. So the government says, okay.
I know the communal holding an attachment to land.
But you see, let me tell you, if you come into the rural community and you're carving out land to give to their sons,
to community members,
to community members, that works. So the
issue of sincerity on the part of those driving the process to ensure that those that are benefiting are members of the community. The Nigerian family.
This is state-based. This program, by infrastructure route, is state-based. It's a federal program, but it's based in the state and also dovetailed in the rural community. So it's not every person you're seeing only those from that state. So that in itself will hoover up loads and loads of numbers of our youth who are unemployed into agriculture. Not when they go to work to accept pittances, but when they go to work and become entrepreneurs. That's what they want, and that's what you make them. The next one is solid minerals. Nigeria today earns just about 0.3% in solid minerals. That is as a share of the GDP. Okay, but look at Congo. Congo is 25%. Botswana is 40%.
And they are not much more endowed.
Yes, we are much more endowed. And South Africa is 18%. Nigeria is 0.3%. And that sector is dominated again by artisanals. That's artisans and all that.
And most of them illegal.
They are illegal. They are illegal. They do it without permits, and the equipment they use are hazardous to themselves and to the society, and they have no training whatsoever.
We saw this for our lead experience.
Yes. So what if this is another catchment area where we can attract our youth and then get them to form cooperatives, the government appoints a moderator, an account officer, and provides funds and then helps them to get the necessary reconnaissance permit and license under the Minerals and Mining Act for them to proceed. Okay, what about resettlement of internally displaced persons? We have 2.7 million internally displaced, driven from their homes and all that. For some of them, they are not able to go back because of the underlying security concerns. Necessitating that we have to build out new communities so that we can move them out of the camps. Is there any rocket science about building two-bedroom house, paving a small road, and creating a community center? This will be work done by the youths, so that we will mobilize the raw energies of our youths to resettle those that are internally displaced. And then all this under the infrastructure infrastructural youth core program. And then going forward, I told you that the infrastructure here has a wide berth. Anything or any service that aids the economy or contributes to the economic space. So there are youths that have, they're very, very, very skilled. Well, inmates, they have those skill sets, which talent, which we overlook. If 20 or 30 people, 30 youths come together, you don't need to be educated. Get somebody educated to write one-page business model and say this is what you want to do and all that. And the government vets it under this program, and then appoints a moderator, an account officer, helps them get that started. You're moving people out of unemployment into employment, from poverty into...
Okay, very quickly into affluence. Let me get your response to this intervention. He says he disagrees with you on the issue of economic development plans. He says the regional governments pursue development programs until the war came. Even so, we continue with the development plans until Babangida administration abolished it in 1987, and he says for no development plan will work in Nigeria until you tackle issues of corruption and insecurity head on.
Okay, so we were saying the same thing. I disagree on the first premise, but corruption and insecurity, very, very important. I've laid out, I don't know whether you noticed, I've laid out an anti-corruption process that anticipates that you and me are not sinners. Nobody. That we are all not worthy. And meaning that my program is strict. It's strict. It doesn't allow it doesn't allow us to think you're a good man or me a good man. It takes the anti-corruption agencies out of political influence, where the president would lose his power to appoint any person to ICPC and all that, and that involves international participation in these programs, so that the drum beats of 80 billion, 90 billion on the hearing will cease. And then when they catch you, it's one thing all we hear is announcements. Okay, this person has been arrested for 80 billion.
We rarely see them get to trial. They get to try to do successful.
But if you go with my plan, then there's no person in that commission that will help any politician, because these people are get to that point through ex officio. That is by membership.
Those that push them up.
By membership of certain members of certain organizations, like the Bar Association electing one, the NUC electing one,
and all that. Now, this plan you have put on the table, is it a permanent job creation plan?
No. It's interventions, because it's going to last for maybe 10 years to enable technical education to kick in, to enable the economic engine to begin to grind.
Okay, the short-term plan will link up with the medium.
Yes.
Of course, ultimately the long term.
Yes. And then again, talking about corruption, this judgment is...
We have to go very quickly. Maybe you can summarize it.
Okay, let me summarize by saying that we must, in the short term, mobilize the energies, harness the energies of our youths, train and employ them to provide fiscal, non-fiscal, food production, solid minerals, trade, facilitation in the economic space. By so doing, we're going to be lifting those youths out of unemployment and into some resourcefulness, and then lifting the environment from this unproductive capacity into a productive capacity.
Thank you so much, Senator Ikechukwu Obiorah, a lawyer, for giving us your time and putting issues on the table. Food for thought for those in power and those that will come into power. A major big challenge for the country, and in search of solutions, something to work on. Thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also for being part of it. My name is Amechi, and we do have a most wonderful time.